Hello, my name is Peter Cinnamon, and you're very welcome to this. It's a podcast, and it's all about the Irish League. Over the weekend, we saw one of the big three pieces of silverware handed out, and it was the League Cup, adorned with the red and white ribbons of Cliftonville, thanks in major part to a goal from who else? Joe Gormley, who struck in extra time at the National Stadium on Sunday. We'll review that final, as well as ponder what impact it could have on both teams for this end of the season run-in. Back in league action, we'll reflect on wins for the Blues, Ports, Bandsiders, Larne and Ballymena, as well as look ahead to a very important game week ahead in this rather tasty race for top 6. So sit back, relax, as it is indeed time for your latest edition of Kicking Match. As I look at my diary, I can see that we are so close to the end of the season. So many big games ahead of us. I can't believe we're here already. And I'm sure you're also sitting looking at your calendar as well, looking at a little date circled, and you're thinking, wow, is it that close? Yes, it is. It may be less than a week away by the time you're listening to this, and yes, tickets are still available. Good time to get them locked in as we speak. As you can imagine, there's only so many of you I can fit into Bug Uglies, so I want to make sure I can lock that in. I don't want people disappointed, because I know as Irish League fans, be it a big derby game, be it a cup final, we're always like, yeah, it'll be fine. We'll sort it later. Now's the time to jump in. Get your tickets. It's on Eventbrite. Directly search for Kicking Match. It's happening at Pug Uglies. And what a lineup we have. We have the Professor, Barry Flynn, coming in, chatting about his brand new book. There's going to be a Q&A there. We're also going to have loads of topics covered by our esteemed panel, which I will, of course, chair. We're going to have Joe McCallion, Ross Welsh from Around the Grounds NI. I also have this third name that I've been keeping from you for the past while, and you'll never guess what. I'm still going to keep that tucked away in my pocket. The one thing I can reveal is that they'll be providing a fair bit of authority to our panel, as they themselves are a former Irish League winner. I'll leave it with you. Only way to see it all is by being there live and in person. Be a part of the very first Kicking Match live. Why not? Get it? Means you're not disappointed. But this week, a man who never disappoints is my guest. He's sports journalist Stuart McKinley.
Yes, all good, Peter. It's taken until almost mid-March for me to make my season debut.
Well, a long time no chat, as in like digitally, so people can hear this conversation, so it's on record. Obviously, we've spent many a time across the little small gantry at Loughgall and other places chatting and asking each other who hit that ball in the box, and that's kind of usually what our conversations are. But it's going to be more expansive, thoughtful, critical as well this week, I think.
We do spend several Saturday afternoons together in various venues across the Mid-Ulster area.
If people want to know what are people doing in media boxes, usually it's asking who hit that corner.
Yeah, goldfish memories for journalists.
100%. I'm lucky that sometimes that I have people beside me to go, okay, it was that person. Saying that though, and I've talked about it on the podcast over the past while, the amount of not scored or missed penalties or the saved penalties, I guess they've been a mix of them all that I've had to cover live on the radio this year, has been rather unique, and some have been spent sitting beside you.
Trying to think of when they might have been, and I don't really remember.
Usually Carrick is involved, because stats would just say that Carrick's involved, and they have definitely been involved. No penalties though, if we're going to have a swift professional transition into our top item. What else would it be? The League Cup final. No penalties. It was starting to look that way for a long time, until who else but Joe Gormley steps up, gets the goal, 99th minute. Cliftonville hang on. I described as soon as the final whistle blew that I thought this was a final riddled with mistakes. I don't think it was, let's say, a boring final. I don't think it was a final that was bad in any way, but there were so many times as the neutral I was watching that, albeit from the Cliftonville end, just thinking, what are you doing? Play that ball, hit that man, try and get it in, and the composure was perhaps missing, But what an atmosphere it was. The biggest NIFL game, are they saying ever or of the season? About 14,000, including other numbers
In
beyond
terms
that.
of NIFL, the organisation, which is only formed in the last 10 to 12 years, it is definitely the biggest game. Um, Going back beyond that, probably records aren't as tightly kept as they are now. So, yeah, credit to NIFL for the move to Sunday and for virtually selling it out and getting that record.
Aren't we in a world where sometimes when we talk about football in England, that they often talk about it as if it didn't exist before the year 1991?
Yes.
Before the year 1991-92, football began with the Premiership or the Premier League, and now within Irish League football, it only began when NIFL began. I appreciate their number keeping is probably a lot better than it may have been a couple of years ago, decades ago within the Irish League. Only Barry Flynn is the true arbiter of stats and numbers within our fine journalistic circles, going all the way back to 1805. But within the odyssey that has been NIFL, big game, big attendance.
Big attendance, and while it didn't deliver in terms of goals, like you say, maybe mistake ridden. But I think that comes down to maybe nerves in the final. Players do things differently, maybe than they do in another game, second guessing themselves because of the occasion. How many of those players have played at a sold out Windsor Park? Most of the Cliftonville ones, not all. Not that many maybe in the Glentoran team. So that maybe was a factor. But lots of people did predict extra time, penalties going to the wire. So that shows you how tightly matched the teams were, and that's how it panned out. And then you get the master marksman in the league, probably. Um, Delivers when it mattered most for his team, and I don't think there's a genuine Irish League fan out there who isn't delighted for Joe Gormley to got that goal and got the winner in the cup final for his beloved Cliftonville again.
And there's probably not a fan out there who, if they've followed their team to see a Cliftonville game, that they haven't been celebrated in front of by Mr. Joe Gormley, as he likes to do. And he was very delighted with that goal, and that was one of the big calls for Magilton and his team. Will they, won't they start Gormley? He hasn't been playing 90 minutes recently, and his place on the bench probably was a great little option B for them to have, and he duly delivered. Again, what could sound exactly like a completely fabricated story here, I felt as though particularly in that second half, where it was starting to lose a bit of zip that the first half had. When you start those cup finals, often every ball that goes forward you think could just slip in a wee mistake here or there. There's a more intensity and a crispness to the play. As that started to break down, it started to slow down, and you knew that the substitutes were going to have a key impact. If you look at the highlights, and if you only saw this game as highlights, as I'm sure many people only have, you would think, wow, look at all these chances for Cliftonville compared to Glentoran. And I agree. Glentoran did not have all these players that you would maybe say would be highlight reel worthy. But if I could describe the two different teams, it would be that Cliftonville were trying to, frustratingly to a point, build up from the back, find a little run here or there, and often it would just kind of flow back and forward from the wing backs, and then maybe it would get punted up top and nothing was there. Glentoran were looking for that break. They were looking to capitalise on it. I thought Palmer had a good game. I thought Sule was the absolute star of the entire game, man of the match for me. I mean, he just looked at times on the ball, winning the ball, a class above. The temperament, the physicality, what a player. And everything that was good for Glentoran was going through him. So when the ball would come up, yeah, perhaps Connolly or Fisher or Jenkins wasn't getting something off, but they looked like they were going to spark something. Meanwhile, for Cliftonville, it would often come into the box and it would be a poorly hit shot, or it's nearly there, and then, you know, they don't find that man where they just want to tee it up for them to get the best shots. That was what was particularly frustrating about Cliftonville in that first half. It was just play the ball earlier, look up, focus, try and pick out a man rather than a punt. Some good balls. I thought Curran should have scored early in the, well, just before halftime, early in the game. Great ball in. He was just at the front post. And actually, as the time ticked on, Cliftonville were late in making their subs. Glentoran maybe jumped in around the hour mark, and there was definitely a time where I was saying to the people beside me, the guys from around the grounds, this could have been the Nathaniel Ferris final, because he came on. There was issues with shape for Glentoran. There was issues with just making up the team, but he nullified that for about 10-15 minutes, knocking balls down, getting in scraps as we've often seen in the blue of Loughgall, but it just wasn't coming off. The big moment before we got into extra time was the save from GLI. I think Red had the odd save here or there, and Yoli had a decent one in, I think, maybe mid-second half, but late on, the ball came in, and there was Joe heading at the back post, and 9 times out of 10, that's nestling in the back of the net, and there's your game done and dusted. But he was able to jolt his way across the goal, get a big firm hand on it, and in the end, it wasn't to be the game-saving save, but it shows that the quality they have in him and what could have been such a significant moment in the matchup.
Yeah, I did actually think that not just to take the goal to win a game, that it could have been decided by the goalkeepers. Cliftonville have made that change recently. Lewis Reid coming in to the starting team ahead of Odomosu, and he's done very well. He's kept his place, justified his selection. And we all know what Daniel Jolai's been like all season. He's been immense. He's been one of the big finds of the season, one of the top goalkeepers we've seen in the Irish League in recent years. Um, so yeah, he kept his team in at that stage. Suppose during the 90 minutes. And then I think he'd be really frustrated by the goal, just the way it went underneath him. It's a really horrible one for a goalkeeper, but can't take away anything from the class of the finish either, can you?
Look, I actually really rate this goal. The angle that I saw it from the north stand. Talk about subs that made a difference. Ryan Corrigan deserves as much praise as Gormley. They needed a bit more central penetration. They weren't getting it. And when he came on, he decided just to run with it and kind of take on the Glentoran players. He pulls them out slightly left of the D of the box, and he finds Gormley. And I think the difference between one of the best strikers the Irish League has ever seen and all his years of experience, and someone maybe 10 years his junior that is a pretty well recognised goal scorer, might have probably better physicality just based on the age profiles. They would have shifted to the back post or waited for it to come to them. He just darted in at the front post, and that was the difference. A really underrated move from him. And at that point, it looked as though the game was done and dusted because Cliftonville could shut it at the back. Glentoran had lost McElhaney at the back, who was pretty much killing all these balls up from high. But as there often is in finals like this, there was one big moment. There was one final roll of the dice for Glentoran. I feel bad for Johnny Russell because the goal was gaping. It came at him fast. Probably came at him not particularly at the best angle, but it was there for him to knock in and take it to penalties. And in my opinion, at that point, late in extra time, the man that they have at the back in Yoli and the shift in momentum that would have given Glentoran, if he knocks that in, I think there's different coloured ribbons around the League Cup as we speak right now. That blazes over the bar, and the Reds add to their rather healthy collection of League Cups. What an afternoon on a beautiful sunny Sunday.
Yeah, if you're looking for an advert for Irish League football, which is a cliche that it always trotted out.
Which it very much is in every sense of the word. That
Yeah,
final is
yeah,
it.
that's what we want to see. And again, it's probably credit to NIFL again for the Sunday move. Um, Saturday tea time might be a nice time for some people to watch football, but the Sunday game has worked for them in those circumstances. You know, there's another debate to be had about Sunday football, which we could go on for a few podcasts on. So we'll maybe skip over that one very quickly. But yeah, it was a great day out. for everyone involved, especially those in red. And it's another day for the Cliftonville. We'll remember, we'll celebrate. Trophy success 2 seasons in a row for Jim Magilton. And give me a trophy over anything in the league other than winning it. I think winning a trophy trumps finishing second, albeit second gets you into Europe, and everything that comes with that. But you give me the memories and the day out and the things that you'll talk about in years to come with your friends and your fellow fans, rather than going, remember that time we finished second in the league?
All depends. I'm sure some chairman would feel slightly different when it comes to the money up the back
And
end.
treasures.
Yes, and ultimately, you know, games like that will probably get people saying, "Here, why is this not a cup that has any sort of European connotations?" I don't think, if I can express a personal opinion here, I don't think I would be in that camp. But what a great day, and it is very much catching up with the Irish Cup as a day that fans enjoy. I appreciate NIFL have spent a fair amount of time promoting it, but also bigging up how much they're enjoying now that's in their repertoire. This big push up when it comes to attendances. Like, you even look over the past while. Last year, Linfield Portadown, it was 9,000. Linfield Coleraine 11. Going back, this is pretty much year in year order. 11,000 between Cliftonville Coleraine. Coleraine Cruise just under 5.7 in 18-19. You go back to 18 between the Swifts and Ballymena. I appreciate they aren't some of the teams with bigger supports, but it was shy of 3,000 people there. So big teams making there helps these attendances, but everything about it was great from a on the pitch point of view. I think I should express this because I was there and I saw it, and people talked to me about it. I'm not pointing fingers because I genuinely don't know who would have been involved in all of this, but particularly from the end that I was going into, wasn't exactly an amazing experience getting into the final. I got there maybe 20 minutes to 25 to, and I almost missed kickoff because it was very, very crowded. I put up the photographs, so I appreciate their security there required, but there was a lot of fans who were slightly irked by that. And look, it's experience I've talked about before. The hospitality offerings or food and drink wasn't great, was not staffed heavily, let's say. We knew there was going to be thousands and thousands of people at that end. Maybe it's a different experience in other parts of the ground, but I saw huge queues with genuinely 3 to 4 people dealing with drinks and food, and people saying that there wasn't this offering or that offering. So and people maybe commenting on what was on offer to eat and to drink. So on the pitch, good.
Did they have the same deal for pints that they
Oh,
did last year?
yes, the one where it was
was it £3 a
it was more
pint or four
the
for
deal for like
15?
4 was more expensive than just buying 4 separately. I don't know, but I think that's 2 years in a row, and I've been at both ends. I don't know exactly who looks after all of that, but broadly was not a great user experience, let's be said. But let's talk about it. Congratulations, Cliftonville, and it's been a weird season for them. We can't mention them without talking about the three, and we'll not. Gormley gets the goal. How long he'll play, we do not know. 35 years old. This will be another memory that many Cliftonville fans will hold on to and cherish, but they've still got plenty to do. It doesn't feel like a team from the back to front, a classic barnstorming Cliftonville team, but there is a chance that this is maybe a foundation to build upon, and they've only got a few more games to go and getting into the top 6. The one thing I'll wonder is, does this give them momentum? I think it will. Or does this maybe, do they take their eyes off the prize, knowing that 6th, 7th, 5th, whatever, we'll see in the European playoff.
They will hope that it's a momentum builder. And I think in Cliftonville's eyes, they will want to look at what Lauren has done in terms of chipping away and win something, keep winning, keep winning. And a lot with Lauren, it was the County Antrim Shield, and then eventually they ended up going and win back-to-back league titles. Cliftonville slightly different in terms of they won the big one last year, the Irish Cup, knockout competition everyone craves. It's difficult to do this season with the players that they lost, but I think rather than replace them in one window, Jim's sort of chipped away at replacing them. Ryan Curran's come back from his long-term injury. I really like the look of Alex Parsons since he's come. I don't know how long he's going to stay around, but if they can bring in players of that ilk, that standard, no reason why Cliftonville can't challenge. Because let's face it, no one's challenged Linfield this season. The last time I was on with you was the night that Lauren effectively won the league at the end of last season, and we were already looking forward to this season, thinking everyone else will strengthen, everyone else will build, we'll have a really exciting title race next season. It hasn't panned out like that. Um, so if there had been one team of real quality to challenge Linfield, it could have been very different. But Cliftonville will look to try and be that team next season. So with Jim maybe just adding a little bit more in each window. And it depends maybe as well whether Mr. Gormley hangs around. He got player of the month back in November. And I've had this sort of conversation with other fans, players, coaches that the game's evolved. We now have five substitutes, and you can maybe afford to carry a player in the latter stages of their career for them just to come on, give you 20 minutes, 25 minutes here and there. And if that's a role that Joe Gormley would be happy with for 75% of the season, why would you not want them around? Joe Gormley coming on against tired defences who think for 70, 75 minutes they've dealt with all the threat that Cliftonville can offer. And you've got a centre half who's busted at that stage of the game and he sees Joe Gormley coming onto the pitch and he's thinking, oh no, this is what I've got to face for the next 20 minutes. Um, yeah, that's a different challenge. If if Joe is happy with that role, if Cliftonville want them, far be it for me to tell Jim Magilton how to manage a squad. But if I was a manager, I'd definitely have that in my mind.
Could Sunday be a fulcrum moment for Cliftonville in more ways than just what we saw happen on the pitch as we speak, as we record? That meeting between fans and what is at least being reported to me, I'm not saying it's fact, North American investors. What could that mean? What could we see here? Could they be buoyed off the back of all that success that we saw at the National Stadium and think this is a team that's good to go? Look at the big whack of fans that they were able to bring out. They're a team who has been at the top of the Irish League on and off for a number of years. Maybe in this new era they need something like that to get them to the next section, but I'm sure by the time you're listening to this, we may have further reports that investment in whatever form it could be is a goer or not, and then we'll have to see how that plays out. I think to mention just within this season, one moment that can't be forgotten is obviously the sudden death of Michael Newbury, and I think it was very poignant there with many fans chanting his name throughout the game. You saw his number 5 ablazoned on the chests of all the Cliftonville players, and it was there when the cup was lifted. I'm sure there was some form, at least, of catharsis, perhaps might not be the word, but finally a high after what's probably been a very somber and difficult number of weeks and months within that club, as well, of course, Linfield, let's not forget.
No, I thought it was lovely of Cliftonville to do that. It was probably always going to happen given the closeness of a changing room, even though he'd only been there a few months. I haven't really spoken to too many Cliftonville people, but it's obviously been a very, very difficult January, and I'm sure it hasn't been an awful lot easier. So for them to do that was really nice. I'm sure it's a very nice touch for the Newbury family as well. In terms of the potential investment at Cliftonville, I think there's a couple of sides to the fact that there was such a big crowd there yesterday. I do think it's something that NIFL maybe need to see that as a challenge as well. How do they get that crowd out domestically every week? I don't have all the answers to that.
Is that up to them?
It's up to the clubs to try and work together and under the NIFL umbrella. And we go back then to Jared Lawler wanting to vary the kickoff times, and that's maybe a case of going to your customer and saying, when do you want us to play? What works for you? And 3 o'clock on a Saturday may not work for everyone. I don't know all the answers, but when you get 15,000 at one game, you go, well, where are you guys every other week? But that also brings.
Did you see what Bar Best was pointing at ahead of that game on Sunday? It wasn't grey and it wasn't cloud
Oh yeah,
shaped.
that's the big part of it. Summer football then comes into that discussion as well.
You said it, not me. You said it, not me. I'm just expressing that that within some circles you hear from managers. I am off the top of my head. I'm struggling to think of a manager that I've heard from within the media say, you know what, I am not in favor of at least exploring that. So that I think that's what I'm expressing. I'm not, we can get into views of either side, but hey, a great
I
day.
think the European managers, the managers that are going to be in the Champions League, Conference League, would probably be in favour of a summer season because the teams are going to be much better prepared, etc. So I think that the European managers would back summer switch. The teams that aren't going to be in Europe, does a summer switch give them then an opportunity to get into Europe? Very, very open discussion to be had by people greater than us here.
The question will be, if we're cutting directly to the Glentoran view on this, what does it mean for them now? They'll want to be playing European football, and up to about a couple of weeks ago, this looked like an almost certainty. It was a club who had finally got its act together. They figured out what wasn't working, and they were playing with a vitality, a purpose, and they were also looking like they just weren't going to be fazed by anything. And broadly, since that win against Linfield in the Irish Cup, it just hasn't been the same team. They're squeaking by some sides. There's been the odd blip along there, some bigger, some smaller. Bangor being a bit more bigger. This is probably another one. What went wrong on Sunday was that they didn't have the attacking threat to get what they needed out of the chances that they had. This side has been trying to fit some square pegs and round holes from a formation point of view. I think we all know that they need some sort of wide player to make things work, and shape wise it didn't click on Sunday. It isn't clicking, and they've got to sharpen up wild quick, because this divine decline can't continue, because there's still so much work to be done within the league. They're out of the Irish Cup, they miss out on the League Cup, and they've got to finish this strong. They're not going to add any more names. Maybe it's starting with Ferris. I do get that Joe Thompson wasn't there on Sunday, and he's a key player for them since he come in on January. But do you fear for Glentoran that they're back to their regular spot of shaky ground and bottling it territory, perhaps, if I may be so bold?
I don't really get that sense. But I think if you'd have offered a Glentoran fan second place this season, they'd have been quite happy to take that. You know, Declan's done a great job in less than a year, bringing them right up to where they are in the league. Won a trophy, got the one other final. Victims of a cup upset, let's be honest. Um, they were massive favourites going down to Bangor, albeit there was always a shock factor in that, given Bangor's form. But Glentoran fans in particular would have expected to go there to win that game. Um, I don't see a massive drop off, really. Um, I do think there's a problem there with goals wise, and the teams in and around them have all scored more goals other than Larne. Even you go down as far, as Ballymena have scored more goals than the Glens in the league this season. Yeah, I think that's a problem where they'll be trying to sort out, which is maybe why they signed Nathaniel Ferris. I don't think there's too many problems to solve. Think about.
They are second at the minute, and they do have 51 points, which is 5 points more than everybody else. So they don't have to do a huge amount to secure that second place. But you're just concerned that big teams are going to come thick and fast. They're going to be very, very hungry to take down Glentoran. So they kind of can't sit and lick their wounds for too long. There's no suggestion that we think that is absolutely going to happen. However, when you're in a sticky wicket, it can continue on. They have won 3 of their last 5 games. There's a draw and a loss in there. So I think the next game they'll want to come at it, and they'll want to come at it quite strongly.
I think there's an issue with their home form as well. I think Declan's even acknowledged that too. They're sixth place in the home league table. Um, you're not going to challenge particularly well in those circumstances. So if they can remedy that going into the next season, not going to be far away. Yes, there's still the work to be done this season in making sure that they finish second to qualify for Europe. And once you get into the splits, things can happen. They're obviously going to beat Linfield, aren't they? They've got Linfield's number, so that's 3 points guaranteed. Um, Setting stuff up for a fall there. But yeah, it shouldn't take them too much, really. Just a little bit of consistency over these last lot of games to get them second in the league. Um, Declan identified problems there quite quickly. Get players out, got new players in. They're obviously going to take time to bed. If that's the foundation you're building from, you're not too far away. And then he's got that midfield axis of Sule, Thompson coming in, Palmer, who's a very, very good player. They don't have too much problems there then building in and around that. Uh, they'll be all right, I think, going forward. And like I say, the fans from where they were this time last year, to be honest, the vast majority of the fan base weren't happy with Warren Feeney. In fact, most of them were quite happy with Declan.
There has been, moving on from the League Cup final, a managerial change, or at least there's been an outgoing. Before we get into this, let's just say it out loud. On Thursday evening, Loughgall put out a tweet saying that they had parted ways mutually with their boss, Dean Smith, former NIFL Manager of the Year the season prior. And what then came out was a statement from a group representing Dean Smith disagreeing with this assessment. What we do know is that Dean Smith's time, as well as his backroom, their time with Loughgall, is now over. It has not been a good season. There's been suspensions along the way. From someone that's watched plenty of Loughgall, were you surprised when this news came out?
I was surprised, yes, given that on the pitch, Dean had really brought the club on. Um, it's the end of an era. He was successful in getting them up from the championship, successful in surpassing all the expectations last season. I spoke to him at the start of this season, and I said that what everyone else was going to say. People were going to say it's second season syndrome. How do you guard against that? He felt he had capabilities to guard against that and be competitive. It's never quite worked out like that. Had a game quite early in the season when they played Portadown on Tuesday night. It was a fantastic game, two each, could have been five each. Two teams going really hammer and tong at it. But after that, there was a lot of games where I spoke to Dean after the game and we said it was unlock all like performances. It didn't really carry that on. The reason behind that, difficult to put your finger on. I think there was a bit of unsettled team selections in terms of injuries and suspensions. Even last Tuesday night, I was there, played Glenavon. Three of the regular back four from last season were missing. Tiernan Kelly in front of them was missing, and that's a big, big ask to go without four players there.
Andrew Hoey was their player of the season. He's at loan currently at
Yeah,
Anna United. That was a relationship that broke down.
yeah. Keelan McAleer obviously went as well. Good, good player. So you had those things going on. But yes, I was surprised Dean had gone in football terms. In terms of the suspension, um, having a manager not in the dugout, not being able to do his job for 15 games is difficult for a club to sustain. And if that was the grounds under which he's departed, I can sort of understand that. And the reasons behind the suspension, when you read what was reported, difficult to defend.
And of course, we don't know why Loughgall decided not to appeal that between him and Dean Smith. Dean Smith isn't here to comment on what his views are of the decision for him to be given the suspension. We do know what's been reported and what's being put down officially within notebooks and all the rest from the referee. But it leaves a big hole in the sense that Loughgall had him there for 8 years and being a part of this new recent era of Loughgall. Took a while for them to get up into the top flight. Many people didn't believe that Loughgall could be a team that will play a top flight football. They came up very, very impressive, massively entertaining. Some players have moved on, the likes of Benjamin McGee, Nathaniel Ferris, and they have struggled this year. When you look back at it, were they just the 12th best team out of 12 teams? Was this a situation where you look at it and go, they didn't invest the same way that all the 11 others did? They're far off the mark, pretty much any other team in this league, and it's a big drop off from last season. Why is it, if you had to put it down to one thing or the main factor, that Loughgall are in the situation where they are in, staring down the barrel of championship football next year?
Yeah, I agree with you. They are the 12th best team in the league. Just the way things have worked out, certainly on the pitch. On paper, I actually thought,
In the sense that saying the worst team sounds
yeah,
harsh.
um, I actually thought that he'd signed quite well in the summer. Um,
Ditto. But then I also thought Newry signed
yes,
well the season before. I'm starting to worry about
yeah,
this
Newry
feeling.
did. I felt um, he went out in the summer and he brought in Nathan Gartside. I thought was a good addition in goal. Um, and he then during the last season he brought in Ryan Wade, who had an impact, good player. Um, and yeah, I thought that there was additions there that were going to help them, going to take them on. Was the loss of Benji McGee more than they could sustain? I suppose you could say it proved that way, albeit he was only away for half a season before he's then come back on loan. Um, I think last season when they came up, they played a brand of football that was enjoyable to watch. I enjoyed going and covering the games, and I just don't think they've played that same type of football this season. Whether that's because they haven't been allowed to play that type of football by other teams because they know how to play against them now, that's possibly the case, or it's just the fact that other teams were better, that they um, the novelty factor helped them. Players were excited and maybe motivated a little bit differently in the first season up, and it just wasn't quite the same. And the yeah, second season syndrome has bitten them and bitten them really, really hard.
A team who is small, you never can mention Loughgall talking about this settlement stat, which I'm sure will go at some random point in the future. But they go down to the championship if it does go through with, I think, a pretty nice squad, and it is a squad. Yeah, they've lost Benji McGee, but they've lost him for money. They lose Nathaniel Ferris for cash. They will be getting, as we were discussing before we came on, money from this, European trickle down. Do you think they go into the championship as very strong favourites, knowing that at least one of the Welders, Limavady, and or Carrick will be in there with them? I guess what I'm asking is, do you see this local squad and think it's going to be picked apart by other current top flight teams?
I think there's every possibility of that, and if that is the case, they could struggle to come back up, regardless of the money that they have coming in, which is unprecedented for Loughgall. I'm not exactly sure the figures they're going to receive from the UEFA Solidarity money, but that's going to be money they could never have even dreamed of before. Transfer fees for McGee and for Daniel Ferris added on top of that. an unreal financial bonus for Loughgall that, I guess, similar to England, where they talk about parachute payments. Not that this is a parachute payment for Loughgall, but it's the teams that come down out of the Premier League in England that are the teams that are favourites to come back up because they have that finance. Loughgall, because of the trickle down, again a controversial vote, isn't going to go down to the Championship. It's just the Premiership clubs are going to get that money, and Loughgall will be the richest club in the Championship. Whether they can sustain their squad, whether they can improve with that finance, remains to be seen. But there are a couple of players there who you would think might be under the watchful eye of several Premiership clubs, and be ready to swoop once the final whistle goes on the last Saturday of April.
Anyone in particular? I think many people will know some of the main names that's out there, just to kind of give off the eagle-eyed journo. Is there one you want to stick out there and go, hey, keep your eyes out for this dark horse player?
I'm a big fan of Tiernan Kelly. I like that type of player. That holding midfielder just gets in and breaks stuff up, doesn't let the opposition play, and just gives the ball to someone who is a more creative player than them. He's clever. Loves a yellow card, mind you. So
Yellow card if you're lucky.
Suspension once or twice a season. But yeah, he's the type that I like. You've got others there. The defence, like I've said, Ben Murdoch, I think might have been someone that people might have wondered, could he make the step up to the Premiership? And he did very, very well last season. Hit by injuries this season, and his age might work against him in terms of Premiership clubs looking at him.
And he's been Mr. Loughgall. Maybe he wants to try and get them back up again.
Yeah. But Nathaniel Ferris was probably the other one who would have been a natural, eye catcher for other clubs, because he's a really good age as well. So it was a slight surprise that he moved in January, but it certainly wouldn't have been a surprise to me if he had moved to a Premiership club in the summer. Absolutely not. Robbie Norton is a decent age. He's been at Glenavon before, as where he came through as a kid. There's potential there for Premiership clubs to look at him. Jamie Ray is a very, very good left back. We have liked the look of. Certainly Premiership standard. So yeah, that squad could be rifled through quite quickly. And they could be left with bare bones trying to compete to get back up again. That'll be something to keep an eye on, I would have thought.
If we look then to the hot seat, we don't know if Loughgall want to or intend to find a long-term successor in the hot seat there at Lakeview Park before the end of the season. A difficult seat to fill from a speculation point of view, just because it's a side that feels like it wants to maybe keep local. That's what's important to them. Someone that understands the dynamics of the club, and it's maybe suggesting that when we look at the Championship, there might be a lot of settled managers who don't want to take that jump, but also looking at maybe some managers that we would connect up with other teams within the top flight, thinking, don't know. For example, I don't think this is a job that people are going to go usual fare, Gary Hamilton, David Jeffrey, etc., etc.
I think there's an exciting project to be undertaken there for maybe a bright young coach who fancies dipping his toe in the water.
I think a lot of people are going to connect the dots with Stuart King.
Well, that's kind of how things work, isn't it? Who's out of work, and he's the most obvious one. Like, how many jobs was Paddy McLaughlin linked with before he got one? If Stephen Baxter hadn't have jumped back in so quickly, he probably would have been linked with every job that was coming up as well. David Jeffries maybe a slightly different kettle of fish, where we don't know if David actually has any interest in coming back into management. Gary Hamilton has pretty much all but ruled himself out of coming back into management. Stuart King has very much ruled himself in to coming back into management at some stage, and that could well come down to personal choice. Does he want
to go into a club and try and get them back into the Premiership? Does he hold on for something else? There's no obvious candidate apart from that jumping out, but I just don't know if they're. I'm just thinking of Ballinamallard is a slightly different scenario in that there's not many managers candidates from around that area, so Mark Stafford stepping in wasn't that much of a surprise. But I just wonder, is there someone of that ilk, a young guy trying to get his first steps, that might fancy Loughgall, and Loughgall might like the look of him? Because I think that was quite similar to Dean in a way, and he was there 8 years and did quite a good job. So that might be something that Loughgall will look at. I know David Johnson was officially down as the manager on Saturday. He's been there before, done it, and I remember him being in a caretaker capacity before, and getting a big win at Shamrock Park in the Derby game when they were trying to stay up one time as well. Yeah, he might fancy doing a bit of double jobbing with his general manager post as well.
Well, his time in the hot seat of Lakeview didn't go to plan. I don't know what the plan would have been for Loughgall against Larne. Second time they've recently visited Lakeview Park, and Larne win 1-0. Weird week for Larne, not a great week for Larne, but they get the 3 points, the much expected 3 points against Loughgall, aided by Robbie Norton getting sent off for 2 yellows and quick fire, and most interesting to me, decided the Ramley wear their away kit even though they're wearing their home kit about 10 days beforehand. Hey ho.
Oh, don't get me started on things like that.
Perhaps it was too dirty from their 1-0 loss to Carrick Rangers late on. Cal Cherry knocking that in the East Coast collision, which I think really, if there is two American investors in Carrick and Larne, it really should be called East Coast Collision, but whatever. East Antrim Derby sounds whatever.
Do you have the trademark for that?
I better. That's what it is. The Slemish Skirmish didn't take off as much the week before, but whatever. This Larne, like, they're third technically, and they've seemed to have, based on just pure the table, said that they've had a better season than a lot of teams, but it just really hasn't felt that way.
When you're back-to-back champions, it won't feel that way. But if you take it on its own in this particular season, it has been a fantastic season for Larne, qualifying for the group stages of Europe, sitting third in the league. With all they've got to concentrate on now is the league, to possibly try and overhaul Glentoran, who they will play again post-split. And if they qualify automatically for Europe by getting into second place, I think it's been successful. I spoke to a Larne fan a few weeks ago who said, no matter what happens in the league, would he swap the memories of the trips to Europe, the souvenirs and the memorabilia he's collected from it? Absolutely not. He's had a fantastic season, brilliant time making all these trips to Europe and experiencing something that no other set of Irish League fans has experienced before. But if you offer most of the teams in the league a bad season that consists of finishing third in the league, they break your arm for it.
I'm yet to try and figure out what this season is for Coleraine. Can they just pretend that it's only been the last 3 games? Because it looks as though these couple of games plus whatever happens in front of them is going to be defining it, and it could end up with them come July rocking on some sort of flight to the Faroes, Lithuania, or somewhere else. A team who had a lot of additions in January, a quite amount of heat on their management team. Another win. They are coasting at exactly the right time.
Yeah, timing's everything, isn't it? It was only a few weeks ago, and I think the fans wanted Dean out. I think when they lost to Glentoran in that Friday night game. And then you look at it, they've won 4 out of the last 5. Those 3 in a row have been particularly impressive. Going to Windsor Park and winning. Not too many teams have done that this season. By all accounts, Portadown were poor against them up there, but were Portadown poor or were Coleraine good, and didn't allow Portadown to play. And then they go and grind out a win at Glenavon on Saturday. In a game that looked like it was going to be just a battle in the end, and a 0-0 battle, and they score a fantastic free kick. So yeah, maybe they're just peaking at the right time. The players are just gelling at the right time to get them through. And if it's all about form at the right time of the season, then who's going to fancy taking on Coleraine in the playoffs? But you could say that for most of the teams. If Larne do finish third, they're going to have the home advantage in the playoffs. No one's going to want to be going to Inver Park in a one-off game. Larne will be massive favourites.
Unless, of course, it's Dungannon. At Coleraine, what's impressing me more than anything is that they're winning in different ways. They're blasting away the champions-elect. They are able to take care of business against Portadown. And then in a nip-and-tuck match-up on a slightly... let's just say not a quick pitch at Glenavon, they're able to capitalise on their opportunity with a great bit of skill, a great free kick. I know some Glenavon fans who to say are raging. To steal a Lurganism is probably an understatement. The highlights don't show it, but there was a plenty of consternation on the radio about what led to the foul that gave away that free kick. Glenavon felt as though they should have had a free kick moments later before they got it, and then Coleraine were able to whip that one home. Tough loss for Glenavon, pretty much bursts their bubble for any sort of notion of top six. It was a very far out, wide chance that didn't really look properly on the cards, but that game seals the deal for them. They can't deny this has been a great turnaround for Paddy McLaughlin, but any sort of fairy tale end to it looks significantly out of sight, which is not the worst thing, because it could have been a nightmare season for many people's eyes. Could have been a nightmare season in many scenarios.
Yeah, that was possibly a game that a few months ago Coleraine would have lost, because I was at the last game when they were at Warrenview, and they were 2-0 up and looked really, really good. And then they just seemed to stop. And they were quite fortunate in the end, actually, to come away with the 3-3 draw, because Glenavon had the momentum in the second half, and they were very, very good. It was a strange game, the way Coleraine played. Yeah, Saturday, I actually have seen the footage of the build-up to the free kick. So there's two incidents. Neither of them looks a foul to me, to be honest. But if there is a foul in it, I think it's the foul on the Glenavon player. I don't think it's a foul on the Coleraine player for the free kick. But like I say, I don't think either was a foul myself. Not in this day and age in the Irish League, where there's a bit more goes than in other leagues. But I can understand why the Glenavon fans are raging, as you say, because like I say, if there's a foul, I think it was the foul on their player before that.
And what was the surprise of the weekend? Result-wise, there's no question, is there, with this Ballymena and Dungannon Swifts game. Cal McCurry getting taken out by Declan Dunn, rush of blood to the head, ran out of his box, took him out as he was players running behind him, but it was going to be a one-on-one chance. He's off, and that was all she wrote for the Swifts, as Ballymena had pretty much the entire game to turn the screw. A lot of people like the McManus free kick. I think the McElhaney one for Ballymena, which they were able to get and score off the back of the foul that we just discussed from Dunn, was even better. Just perfect.
Got that quality, hasn't he? That's why they signed him.
That is what,
he's always been a top player.
They keep getting goals from set pieces, from free kicks, penalties, corners, but I mean that's just.
I don't know what it's like to be a Ballymena fan, but there's never a dull moment there. Win, lose, up, down. It's been a crazy season, the way they've started with a string of defeats, then go on a massive winning run. Now they're scrambling. I don't see them making the top six now after at one stage weren't they way early on. It was a bad result for Dungannon, who now when you look at their fixtures, you thought they were nailed on top six. And now they've got to go to Cliftonville, they've got to go to Portadown, and then they play Linfield in the final 3 games before the split here. 3 massive games for them, and so tight.
And that Linfield game could potentially be the easiest one of the lot.
It's so tight in that area. You just don't know who's going to finish really from third to eighth right now. It's brilliant though.
It is absolutely brilliant. It's a win that sets them up, 5 points off the team in sixth, but they do have a game in hand. So that I think that loss to Glentoran was difficult midweek, but that win keeps them at least in and around. You never know, a mega run. 49 points is the maximum amount of points they can get, and the fixtures again. What 3 games in this league are all cakewalks. They are difficult. So big win for them. Dungannon have it all to do, but at least they still have chances against similar teams around them, where if they don't beat those teams that you discussed there, you kind of don't deserve to be in the top 6 anyway. Keeping their own hopes of a top 6 place alive. Portadown beat Carrick. Barely. You were at this game. I thought it was going to be a snooze fest going into it, and anybody I've talked to have said, you were right
That's
about
one
that.
way of looking at it. It wasn't exciting, I suppose, in terms of chances, in end-to-end football, but it was really intriguing to watch. The way Carrick set
A
up,
team who doesn't want to score against a team who can't.
well, the way Carrick set up, very much 5 at the back, 3 in front of them, very, very deep, and then relying on the 2 guys getting forward, and Gibson and Michaeladis. But they did it really, really well. They defended superbly, and they got away in the break a few times, twice in particular. Danny Gibson, one of them he really should have scored. If he does that, the cat among the pigeons, big time. Away from home, especially after doing a bit of a smash and grab against Lauren during the week. But Portadown had loads of chances as well. You've probably seen the one that crashes off the bar. It's very, very difficult to tell. It's inconclusive whether it was over the line or not. Some people are claiming it was. Portadown probably could have had 2 penalties. I'll say that. There was a similar incident in the Aston Villa game as well, when a player falls over and a player then falls over him. And I think, regardless of whether the defending player has fallen over, if he then impedes the striker in the box, I thought it was a penalty. And Lee Chapman could have had a penalty just before Portadown scored, but they were knocking on the door. They hit I don't know how the ball managed to hit the post.
Is it Eamon Fife who has a goal in front of him and still hits the post?
I really don't know how that didn't go in the net. I was about to make
that. Would have been difficult going into that tunnel
when suddenly we see Jack McIntyre coming back up off the ground with the ball in his arms. I'm like, really? And then he was.
Josh Ukek scores off the back of a rebound, where it seems like this is what Shane McCartan does later on for Portadown, is I'll just hit it from here. And you know what? It's worked for him before. It didn't hit goal, but it did hit keeper, and Ukek followed up to get that goal fairly late, maybe at least 10 minutes.
87 minutes.
Or so on the
87 minutes.
So
you did get the feeling it was coming.
He's needed that, and it keeps you alive, similar to what we said about Dungannon. You gotta believe that if you get results against Coleraine, who's a massive rival around you, and Dungannon coming up, then you can secure that spot. But again, if you're dropping points to them, they're almost 6-pointers.
Portadown Dungannon on Saturday's massive. If Dungannon don't go to Cliftonville and get something, then Portadown could end up above them on Saturday night. And you wouldn't have thought that a couple of weeks ago. So that's a massive game in terms of the top 6, and in terms of the playoffs, because the playoffs is an absolute lottery. And Portadown have gone to the Oval and won already this season. They've gone to Linfield and really put it up to them, and been unfortunate not to get something. They've gone to Larne and got a draw and beat Larne twice at home. They've gone to Crusaders and won. Portadown could be a threat in the playoffs, but everyone's a threat in the playoffs, because form-wise, you just don't know where things are going to go because of the type of season it's been. It's been crazy.
And missing out on the top 6, 7th is not some sort of consolation prize, because one of, or maybe a selection of teams around you will likely still be fighting for that and will be pretty good as well. So even if you're down in the top half of the second half, there's going to be big games coming at you thick and fast. Rarely do Linfield place last in this running order of results, but Friday evening they beat out Crews at Seaview as they continue their canter. And this little Fitzpatrick renaissance continues. Are we all starting to say, hey, how good is he? It's like it's the cool thing to say how great Fitzpatrick is. I want to say that I said this earlier, and all the Linfield fans who poo-pooed him, now that you're coming around to what he really adds. Big battering ram up top, link up play, nice little shot on him as well. This is his nice little moment towards the end of the season, even when he's not on the pitch, but he was on Friday, and a tidy little finish to wrap it up 2-0 for them.
The Linfield fans love him because he
No, I wouldn't say all of them do.
well, I think his work rate and his energy and everything that he brings to the team and holding the ball up and all that battling that is his trademark. They love him for that. And if you keep doing that, goals will come. I was on with you this time last year after the League Cup final when I said he could have had a hat trick that day. Whereas a Peter Thompson, a Glenn Ferguson, a Martin McGackie, of old at Linfield would have had a hat trick, but he's just not as prolific as them. Maybe I'm eating a bit of humble pie then, because his finish on Friday night was really, really good finish. But the old quote: "The harder you work, the luckier you get." And I don't think there's a striker in the league that works as hard as Fitzpatrick. Now the league bonus is gone. Yeah, the Linfield fans love him for that, and they probably would like a few more goals, but they're coming.
Not expected to be a result for the Crews. They're on the wrong end of that one, but they're in a position, even though they don't have as many games as some of the rivals in the top six. What they do have is this golden chance against Loughgall, and if they win there, they're on 46 points. The team I was referring to in sixth was Portadown there on 45, also with only 2 games left. The difference there is that they've got Loughgall to beat, and Portadown, Dungannon, only one team can get 3 points there. Dungannon, Cliftonville, only one team can get points there. Ditto for Portadown, Coleraine. So they win that, 49 points. Their top 6 place will be sealed, and you've got to say, especially where it was 2 months ago, this is an excellent turnaround and somewhat of the first feather in the cap of the Declan Cadell era.
Yeah, full credit to Declan. He got manager of the month, fully deserved. You got to give managers time. It's not something that that is common. But I always thought that Declan would have loads of credit in the bank there. Coming off the back of a long era of Stephen Baxter management, a team that needed work, or a squad, sorry, needed new coach coming in, knows the club very, very well. He's been riddled by injuries. But Billy Joe Burns has hardly played this season, and that's a big loss for them for a start. And I know he's had a string of other injuries. We spoke to him after a game one day, and I think he had 6 players training one night because of the injuries they had. Now he's got them.
Sounds like me trying to get a 5-a-side organised, to be honest.
Yeah, mostly he's got everyone back fit now. And I watched them a few weeks ago at Glenavon, and they got the job done quite well. Could have been behind in the first half, but once they scored, they really looked at a decent side, and I didn't see them surrendering that lead in the second half. So they've got a bit of steel about them now as well. And like I say, because he knows the club well and he knows what's coming through there, Declan will be fairly confident they'll do a decent job. It's massive that they win against Loughgall because of everything else that's around them, and those are the games you have to win. If you've got a home game against the team that's bottom of the league, when you're trying to make sure you get in the top 6, you got to win it. Especially when they go to the Oval in the last game before the split. There's no guarantee of getting anything there. So if they slip up on Saturday, Cliftonville can win the couple of games in hand. yeah, they could be under big threat for the top six. There's so much as we talked about in this race for the top six, but I'm glad there is because the title was over a while back. Relegation was sorted a while back, really, and the playoffs probably settled too. So it's good to have we actually have something to talk about, and we will have right to the end because whoever doesn't make the top six is going to be fighting for that seventh place and the reward that comes with that.
Looking ahead to this weekend, couple of games, as you can imagine, the call-offs and all the rest, midweek, Ballymena Larne, which will be huge actually for Ballymena's season, Cliftonville Dungannon, that one we were chatting about, interesting, no done there, which is a killer for the Swifts. They go into that matchup, Cliftonville, will they have the weary heads? I mean, a draw there would probably suit a lot of their rivals around them. Glentoran against Glenavon as well. We'll not spend too much time as that will be, of course, in the rear view, as I always say. So difficult to predict some of these, but looking ahead to Saturday, Ballymena, Cliftonville. It's at the showgrounds. We don't know what state the pitch will be in. Cliftonville having played, 3 games by the time that comes around within the space of 7 days. You kind of like Ballymena here, don't you? Just based on what's on the line for them. They lose the Larne, not it's such a big pushback. It might be for nothing, but I think even if that doesn't go their way, they'll be looking to go after it when it comes to Cliftonville because they'll still want 7th, and there's still an inkling and a hope that they can get there. Pitch benefits them.
A heavy pitch, Cliftonville playing the third game in 7 days. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for the Reds. They were really poor against Glenavon a few weeks back, coming off the back of playing 3 games in a week. That was when they played Portadown on the Sunday and then played midweek again. Yeah, given the circumstances, I would probably just about favour Ballymena in that one.
I am too. I'm going to say 2-0 there to Ballymena. A draw helps 0 of them. Ballymena can only get a total of 49 points pre-split. So actually, if they don't win against Larne, just based on the fact that some of these teams are playing against each other, it knocks them out almost guaranteed. So I think they're 1-1, but I'm going to go 2-0 to Ballymena.
I'll go Ballymena by the odd goal.
Carrick Rangers Glentoran, again, it's a mix of pitch and having also played their 3rd game in 7 days. I'm going to go for a draw here. I think it's going to be a 0-0, 1-1. Tired legs is not going to help that front line get any sort of more juice, and we kind of know what Carrick's game plan is at the minute. It is hold back, and hope one of those players up top will sneak a goal. We saw it work to perfection against Larne. I think they might just come up short here, 0-0, 1-1.
Carrick will play exactly the same way as he did against Portadown Saturday. I believe it's exactly the same way they played against Larne. Got the result. If Carrick score, I think they can get something. I'm not sure the Glens will score more than 1. So yeah, I'll if Carrick score, they'll get a point.
I would echo those sentiments as well. It's just I don't think Glentoran are going to score more than the 1 unless things get going and they start to get more from set pieces, which I think they'll need to rely on down at Taylor's Avenue. We spoke about it earlier. It's the Crew's chance to seal the deal. Almost. They take on Loughgall. I think this is a question of how many, not if Crews win.
Yeah, depends a lot on the Loughgall defence if they've got any chance of getting those players back that we spoke about earlier on, and David Kelly in midfield. Otherwise, I can see that game panning out pretty much the way the game against Glenavon did last midweek. Glenavon got the goals, got ahead. Loughgall had plenty of the ball, but didn't really make that threatening without Benjamin gave them off. Obviously, plenty of players have gone, losing a little bit of that punch up front. Crusaders at home, you definitely fancy them. Could rack up a few goals.
I'm going to say probably 3-0 there. I won't be as bold in Blues against Glenavon at Windsor Park, but I do think it's probably going to be like 2-0 Linfield. I think a bit of life is going to drain from Glenavon's season, and Linfield perhaps will want to get this Like, if they can get it done before the split, would you not want to do it?
Oh yeah, take the pressure off.
Like, I think that'd be a real achievement to get this season mathematically done before the split. It's not totally in their hands because I think they'll need a result going wrong here or there, but they can do it.
Yeah, the worst Linfield team in history winning the league before the split would be a fantastic achievement, wouldn't it? That's tongue in cheek, by the way, for any if David Healy manages to hear this. Um, it's going to be a title win without too much um kudos from a lot of people. Um, I just don't quite understand how Linfield haven't got as much praise as they did back in the day when I remember them running away with it by New Year, and they've done something similar. Yeah, I expect them to win this game. Glenavon, much as I've told a lot of people that every game I've seen them since Paddy has come in, they've played very well in, even in defeats. I think they're just running out of a little bit of gas now. Possibly because the team hasn't changed that much, and maybe the players are just they're running out a bit of energy at this stage of the season. But they went to Linfield, I think, early in Paddy's reign and put it up to them were fairly unfortunate. But I don't see them.
2 games at half 5. I think if you were in charge of the BBC streams, you would get them to pack up their gear and drive down the road, because I don't think you think it should be happening at Inver Park between Larne and Coleraine. You want to get this Portadown Dungannon game broadcast to the masses. That's the one that maybe has more on the line there. Sticking with the game at Inver Park, Coleraine, I cannot, especially on that surface at Inver Park, I can't doubt them here. I think this could be a 3-1, an announcement to say we're the real deal going into this split, and you might be start to get scared of us for next season because we've already got the motor humming.
If they can take what they did at Windsor Park, Denver Park, they've got every chance. They're on form. The form team in the league, and if it's about timing, if it's about clicking at the right stages, yeah, they've got a big chance here. But much as Lauren been up and down this season, I think they're coming into a wee bit of form as well. Could be a cracking game. Two teams that like to play a bit of football, get it down on the ground. Because a lot of times when these two are up against other teams, um, it's a bit of a contrast in styles, which, which you think sometimes could lend itself to being an entertaining game. Doesn't always work that way. Um, or maybe they'll just go and pass each other to death. But I can see it being a decent game, good one for the iPlayer people to be watching. I'll be at Portadown though. I won't see any of it. So whether however good or bad it is,
And do you feel confident that your ports can sign off what's been a slightly surprising season of success for them? Ports Dungannon isn't one that screams that's been something that's been good for the red part of Mid Ulster in recent times. Like, if you were to look at that Cliftonville Dungannon game, is there a certain team you're supporting there? When it comes to top 6 ambitions, might it be actually Dungannon keep Cliftonville at the bay, and then they'll feel confident going in the next game, so you can maybe snatch them there?
I would have thought from a Portadown point of view, you don't want Dungannon to win that game at Cliftonville because then it gives you a chance going into Saturday to go above Dungannon. And that's kind of what you want to be aiming for. These games tend to go with home advantage from memory. Portadown don't have a good record. Bangmore, Portadown nicked the win against Dungannon at Shamrock earlier in the season. Got a really important win a couple of seasons ago against Dungannon when they were trying to stay up and catch Dungannon at that stage, albeit couldn't in the end. Um, Difficult to say for sure, but like I said, the records show home advantage really in these ones. Albeit Dungannon has been very, very good this season. Dean Smith got manager of the year last season for what he did at Dungannon, or sorry, at Loughgall, but didn't even get into the top half. Rodney McAree this season I would say would be a massive contender in a lot of people's vote for manager of the year. If he can win this one, I think that's then nailed on really for top six. And is it good that the top six is going to change? There's nothing as boring as the same thing happening over and over and over again, and we've had the same top six for far too long. So let's hope someone can do that. Let's hope someone can do that.
We're not even close to that yet. Well, perhaps Portadown Dungannon, a win there for either team could be a massive help for that changing of the guard. But here comes Coleraine, here comes Cliftonville, Dungannon and Portadown aren't even close to being, well, they're not simply out of sight yet, even with Silverware. I think I have to say Saranara to Portadown's chance of top six football, even though they've played a number of games in the week, in that midweek game against Cliftonville. Regardless of what way that goes, I'm going to say 2-1 Swifts. Mr. McGovern breaking them hearts at Shamrock Park, maybe later on. Yes, 2-1 Swifts. But I will not leave you, Mr. McKinley, without you getting a bit of promo. How can people find and read the things that you do?
You can read my coverage, which generally centers around the middle area and what we're around the album. So the Belfast Telegraph, the Life. My news on those three clubs, which has been an interesting season for all of them. Not sure any of them have gone the way that people may have predicted. Certainly not Portadown. Portadown now said that Saturday night will be a start of the season. I think they're the top six. Not sure. I suspect not sure if they get the whole knowledge of that in the season up. But Portadown will be the top six. They're really good team. Albeit very
Stuart, it's been great to have you on. Let's not make it such a long break. Until next time, thank you very much. I'll chat to you soon.
Yeah, good to be back, and sure there's a few weeks of the season left, and I'll see you again.
Let's get this sucker tied up. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, follow this fine podcast on all those social medias, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. It's Kick a Match on all of them. That is where you'll find a link. Yes, you may have forgotten during the pod, but now's your time to go. Pod's over. Time to get that Kick a Match live ticket. I'll be delighted to have you there in the company of fellow listeners just like yourself. 10 quid. Plenty of people going there on their Todd, so I'm looking forward to it all, meeting up one big go, and I'm excited about what I have planned for you. Pug Uglies, Friday, 21st of March. Until then, until next week, the final pod for Kick a Match Live. Uno. I'll see you very soon.